For more on Venezuela's crisis and its economy, I'm joined by Fernando Menendez, Senior Fellow for Strategic Initiatives at the Center for a Secure, Free Society. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Now, as we've seen, protests have really gotten more numerous and more violent in recent weeks. Why is this escalation happening?
Well, you're watching people's living standards just degenerating rapidly. At the same time, you have a situation where the government is in control of everything. They're in control of the courts, of the military. Recently, they took away legislative power away from parliament. They controlled the press. So they're closing the venues by which people can honestly and peacefully express their disappointment and their disapproval. So obviously people are spilling out into the streets. This is what they can do. And at the same time, the government has been escalating its repression and becoming even more violent each day.
And we do know that everyday life for Venezuelans clearly changed a lot. Last year, Venezuela's economy contracted more than 17%, and then inflation has been estimated as high as 720%. So what does this mean for Venezuelans in terms of buying food and other basic goods and services?
Oh, there's a shortage of practically everything in the country. There's a shortage of food. There's a shortage actually, the food shortage has been reported through increasing weight loss around the country. There have been cases of malnutrition. At the same time, there are shortages of medicine. So you have folks who can't find high blood pressure medication or heart medication or insulin, and the results of that that have been added to it. It is a ever-increasing spiral downwards.
Now, in a way to try and address this, we know that President Maduro recently extended the nationwide economic state of emergency in Venezuela for an additional 60 days. What does this measure do?
It does more of the same. It is this attempt to try to control the economy, to try to control every aspect of economic activity in the country. They have put all sorts of restrictions on foreign currency. They have put all kinds of restrictions on what you can buy and what you can't buy. It's as if they are attempting to put even more controls on the controls that haven't worked already, that have created some of this crisis.
Now, a lot of people say the crisis initially started with the oil industry. So let's take a look at how that's faring. We see that Venezuela this week said it supports a 9-month extension of an OPEC production limit agreement. Is that helping the economy at all?
That's not going to help in the long term. At one point under Chavez, they were selling oil for about $100 a barrel. They were able to use that for social programs and political programs and to support their allies in other parts of the region. With the collapse of oil prices, that essentially ended. And what it did was it unveiled deep-seated structural problems in the Venezuelan economy. For them to make any kind of, let's call it a profit on heavy crude and oil, they'd have to be selling at about $60 a barrel. At this point, the world market price is about $50 a barrel. So they'd have to go a long way, and even that wouldn't help tremendously.
So from the outside looking in, people are wondering, why is Venezuela so much worse off than other oil-dependent economies, especially the ones in the region that were hit by the same oil slump?
I think it is the extent to which the Venezuelans used some extremely misguided and misinformed economic policies. They thought that they could essentially do everything they could through oil. It is the #1 export. It's the main revenue for the country. And at the same time, there was no attempt to create the structures, the economic structures to create a viable, productive economy. This has been less the case in some of the other countries. But the Venezuelans took it so far that we are now watching the results of their own policies.
And Fernando, obviously a lot of economic issues to pick from, but if you had to pick the ones that really need to be addressed most urgently to really try and get the country back on track, what would they be?
That is a great question. The economy has to be freed. The economy has to be freed. Venezuelans have to be able to go to market with their products. They have to be able to produce. There has to be an accumulation of wealth so that productivity and capacity can be increased. And none of this is on the agenda of the Maduro regime and what they call 21st century socialism. In fact, it is the complete opposite. As I say, the government is completely responsible for this situation, and the situation is getting worse and worse on a daily basis.
Certainly a very precarious situation. Thank you so much for your insights. Fernando Menendez, Senior Fellow for Strategic Initiatives at the Center for a Secure Free Society.